Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Taproom Success. We are in the summer of 2026. 2026. What am I talking about, Carrie? We're 2025 right now, and I can't believe we're already here. But, it's crazy to believe that the year is half over. But I continue to have more and more conversations with taproom owners, engineers, and managers, and food is something they all come back to. Are you seeing that as well?
Food. It's always about food, Andrew. It totally is. Yeah. There's still a lot of tap rooms that do not have food, do not want food, are not going to, bring it in. And I'm like, man, you got to have food. You got to have something. And we've talked about the range of options from just a bag of chips to full kitchen and everything in between. But, I think the more you talk about it, and this was actually, I got a lot of feedback from CBC from people, and I was like, what's your main takeaway? And near the top was always, I gotta have food. I've got to have some food in there. So basically a requirement now, and it's just a question of how you're going to do it so that it won't, you know, strain your business operationally and financially.
Yeah, 100%. I'm having the same conversations as you. A decade ago, it was all about the beer. And I really almost am pained to say that sometimes beer is secondary, but so many tap rooms and businesses are just looking for different ways to attract more guests, generate more revenue. And food is one of the ways that we can do that to kind of create that overall experience, which, as we know, the guests are craving. So I know you love talking about food menus. And the title for today, the recap and summary you gave me is about profitizing your taproom food menu. And I see what you did there. Combine the word optimizing with profit, and you came up with profitizing, of course. So, what are the best practices to track the food cost of each menu item, and what systems are available to automate this process for breweries and tap rooms that are diving into food?
Yeah, there are some good ones out there. I think the first is just be really purposeful and intentional, as with everything in your business, is bringing on food just because you have to, fine, but bring it on in a thoughtful manner. And that starts with really understanding, what your costs are and what your profit. Because we talk a lot about sales growth, which is important, but really what we're talking about is margin and profitability. Like, what do you get to keep? So when you think about best practices, you know, from a 30,000 foot view, we talk to food experts all the time, and the consistent theme is have a simple menu, fewer items. It's easier to manage. It's easier for the customer. And think about it. When you walk into a restaurant and the menu is 4 or 5 pages in small print, and you've got, oh, I don't
It's
know.
overwhelming,
It's
right?
overwhelming. Geez, I could spend a half an hour and still not know what I'm going to get. So keep it simple. Confusion costs money. That's a saying that we talk about a lot too. So keep it simple for your income statement, and for your customer. The next best practice is really think about this term called a platform strategy, which I love. Um, so it's basically use a versatile and high quality ingredients and that you can use to create a variety of menu options. And what that means is think about like wraps, sandwiches, pizza, burgers, bowls. I love those bowls, right? When you go in, because a bowl's like, you can get really creative with the ingredients, whether it's like, rice bowl, quinoa, some veggies and, nice proteins in there. And it's kind of a cool thing to eat.
I know we often let our personal favorites and flavors kind of slip into the conversation, but I think kind of summing it up, breweries should explore more unique food option because how many breweries do we know that serve pizza? It's kind of like, who does a trivia night? Everybody does a trivia night. Who has pizza? Probably 4 to 5 breweries have pizza. So I think there is value in looking outside the box for whether it's bowls or some other unique item that can be a driver of traffic.
Yeah, and you and I talk about the tapas or small plates, and it makes so much sense for so many reasons. Because if you'd really want to be beer forward, I mean, that's where you make your money. Yeah, people will come out, but if you can give them enough food, so you've got something, you're going to have that extra beer. But again, think about that concept of a platform strategy where it's fewer ingredients to make a lot of different types of menu items, different offerings. Bowls are great, things of that nature. So those are just some high level best practices. And then it's what are some specific tools? We've been talking with the folks at MarginEdge, and a lot of what this comes down to is recipe costing. Like, what does it actually cost to make your food? What are your margins? What's your profitability? I see this as a fundamental problem in our industry is that many breweries just don't even know the cost of their beer. We'll say, well, what is it? Well, we're not. we can get the ingredient costs, but not the labor and overhead. And how do we do that? And it's fine with beer if you're just selling through the tap room. The margins are really high. It's kind of, I hate to say it's hard to screw it up, but you've got margin for error. In food, you don't. So you really need to understand that. So Margin Edge can do a great job with inventory management, recipe costing, food cost calculations, margin analysis, and the real-time reporting, which is super important. Because a lot of time, food costs change all the time, super fast. So you got to be watching this stuff. So that's a tool that's really interesting. It does a lot of dashboarding. But the key takeaway is really understanding your costs and your margins and having a way to kind of aggregate that information so you can update prices if you need to.
So diving a little bit deeper into that, what are the key metrics or benchmarks we should be using to analyze the profitability of those individual menu items?
The the term in the restaurant world and the food world is prime costs. So it's basically what are your food costs and what are your labor costs? And the benchmarks generally are around 60% or less. We've seen breweries do much better and some of them are not. But the takeaway is to really understand what are your prime costs in total, and then what are those costs for each of your menu items. Um, so really benchmarking that, tracking it over time, looking at trends. Again, these cost changes all the time. And I think a real X factor here is to engage your team. So if you have a chef, a general manager, somebody's got to be watching these numbers and actively managing towards them. So it's not obviously enough just to measure them in quantity. Somebody's got to be actually looking at them and actively working to improve. Stepping back a little, the recommendation is to, if you're using QuickBooks, to really use these classes so that you can see your taproom food and your taproom non-food operations. So what are you actually making sales, margins, and bottom line with your food? What are you actually making with your non-food items? So a lot of times we'll track a taproom class, but we're not breaking it down between food and non-food. And I think that's really important to do because a lot of times we'll get, those margins are just not as strong on the food side.
And I will chime in because you've done a lot of great content on it. Within Taproom Success, we have lessons that go over everything you're talking about right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it takes a little bit of work, but not a lot. But once you're done, the payoff is great. You just run the reports and it'll show you how you're doing, getting those classes set up. So yeah, I would encourage people to check out the trainings that we have on that and implement that in your for your financial
Now,
report.
talk to me a little bit more about dogs, stars, puzzles, and plow horses. I know these aren't things that you're hopefully going to find on your menu. They're not going to be events that you're going to see. What are they and how they are they applicable to tap rooms?
Yeah. So it's really like I think about portfolio curation, like you curate your beer portfolio, right? Or you engineer it. So with food we call it like menu engineering.
Yep.
And how do you engineering, like how do you design it? What are you offering to people? What's the positioning of the offer on the menu? Like we read from usually from top to bottom and we're scanning. So how do we think about that? Now, this dogs and stars and plow horses and puzzles, the names are not great, but what it's trying to tell you is as you look at your menu options, like what are the ones that actually sell well and have a good profit margin? We don't always know. Be like, oh yeah, that thing sells a lot. It must be great. And you look at the margin and it's not that solid. So taking this sort of matrix approach, the dogs are the menu items that have relatively low sales and low margins. So you're not selling much, you're not making much. So those are the ones right off the bat to say, we probably get rid of this. Your plow horses are the ones that you're selling, but the margins are not very good. So we got to figure these things out. All right, people like them, but how do we make them so that the margins? The puzzles, these are the ones that they're not selling very well, but the margins are great. Okay, what are we doing? How can we think about, maybe maybe calling these out on the menu or, marketing them more or having staff suggest and then there's the stars. These are the ones that have great sales and really good margins, and we want to do more of that. So really focusing on your stars and your puzzles, eliminating your dogs, and fixing your plow horses. So again, I don't love the terms because they're sort of like you have to be like plow horse. What's that? But
Yeah.
if you visualize it, and that's what the matrix does, you can see it a lot better. Then you can kind of graph out where your menu items
Are
land.
you able to give me a quick example of each?
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be different for each tap room. But for example, when we were talking with Andre from Margin Edge, now this is very regional, but they had he was working with a client that had a crab dip, and it sold okay, and the margins were, just not great. So they went in and they altered, some of the ingredients and whatnot, and they were able to kind of turn what was maybe a dog or a plow horse into a star just by number one recognizing how we doing with this, doing a little bit better in terms of putting it on the menu so it would be a call out for the customer. And then they were able to kind of change things out. So you have to kind of look at it. So basically the approach is take your food items and put them on this graph and just look at what actually sells and what actually has a sufficient margin for you or a high margin relative to the others. And you might be surprised when you graph those out. And the whole goal here is menu engineering. You want to optimize your menu so that you're getting the customer what they want, and you're also getting those products that are going to be had that higher margin for your tap room.
Awesome. Well, food is important these days for all you tap rooms out there that don't have it yet. I just think back to a conversation Carrie and I had at an event in North Carolina. We were talking to a tap room pair of managers, and we said, "Hey, do you have food?" And they were like, "No." And we go, "Well, what happens if someone's having a beer, they get hungry?" They're like, "Oh, they go to the Italian restaurant next door." And that's what's happening. The competition isn't just other breweries. It's really any place someone could spend money when people are going out. In many cases, they're looking for that full package that appeals to everyone. And food is such a vital aspect. And once you launch your food program, everything that Carrie said today is an important part to have a grasp on.
Yep. Yep. Got to have it. Got to do it and just do it right. And there's systems and tools out there that can help you. But I think if you follow some of those best practices, again, keep it simple, use a platform strategy, think about menu engineering, you're going to be ahead of the game. And we like to have these models, if you will. It sort of make things a little easier. You don't have to start from scratch. Just kind of follow um, what others have done in this space to be successful, and it'll take a big weight off your shoulders, and hopefully have a much more profitable food side of your business.
So we're talking food. What's one food item besides bowls that you wish a brewery near you offered?
Let's see. That's a good question. It's funny. We were talking with one of our members, Chris, and he was talking about it. Oh, what is it? They have the little pepperonis. Are they baked pepperoni chips?
Like deep
Pepperoni.
fried pepperoni chips or something like that? I
Yeah,
think that's
I
what it is.
saw those and I'm
Pepperoni
like,
chips.
those look ridiculously good. And I think they sell really well for him. So yeah, that's something that I would like because it's you know, if you just want to go in and look, I don't this is kind of a pet peeve of mine is like I don't need like a full meal. Like and actually I prefer smaller. So something like, those pepperoni bites or maybe little bacon bites or tater tots or something just something to nibble on. I'd like to see more of that. And it's fine. The pretzels are fine, and then nacho, yeah, those are fine. But I think to what you said earlier is, get a little creative and fun with this stuff. And there's lots of ideas out there that can, kind of differentiate you and get you to come in more often.
There is a restaurant near us that has always served like a bucket of tater tots, and like so good. They give you like a little sriracha ketchup with it. I just want to eat that while I'm drinking beer sometimes.
Yeah.
And on the flip side of things, kind of position it a little on the healthier side. We were traveling a few months ago, went to a brewery up in Lexington, Virginia, and they had the most amazing hummus platter. It was just one of the best portions of hummus I've ever had, and just veggies to dip in it, some pita to dip in it. Oh, it was perfect because I wanted to snack and I was able to snack. It wasn't a meal. It sat out for the hour we were there and it was exactly what we needed. So I like options.
The other thing you had sent me, and this is funny, like I'll get a text from you with a picture, like where am I now? What am I eating? And you had sent me, do you remember this? The flight of hot dogs. They were like little hot dogs and they were different. Maybe they had different toppings and
Yeah,
whatnot. I
that's
thought that was
correct.
because we talk about flights all the time because it's like variety. You get to try something fun. It's new. It's an experience. You could do that with your food too. Maybe a flight of, I don't know, little hot dogs or a flight of different
Flight to
taters.
pair with a flight, perhaps.
Flight with a flight, yeah, and the tater tots for sure because
If you're a
that's
brewery doing that, let us know.
yeah, but this is exactly this is the platform strategy, right? Let's stay on hot dogs for the moment, or even tater tots because they're relatively simple and everybody loves them. If it's tater tots, think about that. Like it's a tater tot, but you get these five different sauces. Try them out, or these hot dogs with these five different toppings. So yeah, something easy to share and talk about and make it fun.
And we're not trying to complicate what you're doing at your brewery, your tap room, whatever you might call it, but just brainstorm. Think about what might work. Carrie and I are going to tangent talking about, hot dog flights and tater tots right now, but could any of these items be something that your audience wants and gets them drinking more beer?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just starting the conversation. So that's what we do here, Taproom Success. So every month we have our mastermind meetings. We bring people together. We talk about best practices, share ideas, talk about what's working, work through our challenges together. So we often will say, like, if anybody needs help with something, let's throw it out and kick it around. And then each month we have our monthly experts that come in on specific topics. What we're working on these days, a whole bunch of things, but one that's particularly interesting to us is really sales training, like suggestive selling. How do you get your staff to really kind of embrace the idea of, hey, we have a lot of cool stuff. Let's inform the customer about it in a suggestive selling way, not pushy, but we are in the sales business, so doing things like that. And then we have our Taproom Success Blueprint, all of our online courses that you can take and share with your team, so you can learn about events, obviously financial planning, all the things that you need to run a successful taproom business.
And more than ever, I think connecting with others just like you all is important. You just share ideas, share strategies, commiserate sometimes, but we have the resources for you to see greater success. So everybody, taproomsuccess.com. We'll see you soon. Cheers.